We are running 15 minutes late. I want to thank you all for coming to the Community Human Rights Breakfast here in Rockland County. One of the things that our county executive supports and encourages to make sure that every community member has got a stake in the human rights business of Rockland County. It is a collective ownership. And when I look across the room, now I believe that this is what the county executive means. We have every organization, every represented, meaning human rights is a business for all, just as the name implies, human rights. And my job here is so simple. It's just to welcome you, all of you, to the Community Human Rights Program, and we can give it a clap for that program. I don't know about you. I don't know where the parking is. I don't know where the restroom is. I don't know where things are. And if I continue showing you, I'm very bad at direction. But we will have somebody who's going to give us or to orient us to where things are. Nicholas.
Thank you, Spencer. I'm going to assume everyone found the parking lot. So as we all do in county government, we wear many hats. Today I'm the in-house logistics coordinator. So on behalf of Christopher Kier, our director of the Fire and Emergency Services Office and the Fire Training Center, welcome. If this is your first visit, I'd like to acclimate you to a few things so your visit can be a safe and productive one. Should there be a fire, we're all going to get up. We're going to exit the building room from the exit back, exit across the hall, and assemble on the far side of a parking lot and wait for future direction. Is this mic cutting out or is it okay? All right, so AV system check. If you need a restroom, they're located down the hall in that direction, the ladies and men's room. And if you need any assistance during your visit here in the main office, we could help you out with whatever you need. And if you happen to need to take a cell phone, we ask you just silence your phones first of all, and then get up and just go outside and take the phone. So with that, if there are no questions, thank you, Spencer, for including us and having your affair here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. What a great man. If we had begun on time, I was going to introduce each and every one of you, and believe you me, I know each and every one of you by name. So meaning it was going to take a minute or two talking about that one, talking about that one. So we were going to spend 120 minutes of introductions. And I know people don't have 120 minutes of introductions, but we can be talking to each other. A session is coming that will be very interactive, where if you want to speak or make a comment, you can introduce yourself at that time. But for now, I would like to introduce our county executive, the Honorable Ed Day, to give us a statement about international human rights.
Thank you, Spencer. And I want to thank Nick Longo for giving you all the places to hide for the next 3 or 4 minutes when I was speaking. Anyway, welcome to the ambassadors for human rights. You didn't know that's what you're here for, but you are. You are going to be our ambassadors going forward to do our very best here. So I want to thank you all for joining me in commemorating International Human Rights Day. Today is without question a significant moment in history. We will be marking and recognizing that day in 1948, when the General Assembly of the UN adopted the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. This historic decree was the world's response to the horrific atrocities of World War II, which included the killing of 6 million Jews. It was a means for world leaders to ensure that ugly chapter in human history would never again be repeated. The very first article of the proclamation reads as follows: all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and in rights. Yet this basic concept, which is the very bedrock upon which our nation was founded upon, has faced countless battles, and frankly unnecessarily so. Despite sharing the same blood, breathing the same air, holding the same dreams for our families, the disease of intolerance continues to breed. Decades after that declaration inception, some still face imprisonment over their sexual orientation, or victimized for the color of their skin or for their religious beliefs. We have, very recently, seen tragedies because of the spread of intolerance and hatred. We've also seen very recently celebrities endorse anti-Semitism and spread conspiracy theories. This type of behavior is disgusting. Make no mistake about that. And it must be denounced whenever and wherever it arises. But the truth is, and I've said this so many times, there is so much more that joins us than divides us, and we need to always focus upon that, which is why this forum, here and now, is crucial to making sure hate never has a home in this county, never gets comfortable being in this county, because discrimination will not and cannot be destroyed from the top down, ergo the ambassadors. The issues we face can only be solved by the ground up, by a community united. I appreciate the New York State Division of Human Rights and also our Commissioner Maria Imperial, who I met earlier today, for being present to provide us the necessary tools to win this war. Yes, it is a war. Dr. Martin Luther King once said, "The ultimate measure of a man or a woman is not where he or she stands in moments of convenience and comfort, but where he or she stands to challenge and controversy." That brings us here today. To the people of Rockland, I say join us. Let's stand tall together and never ever stop fighting, on the good days and the bad, for the inalienable rights that we are born with, that we all in fact are created equal. Thank you very much for being here today.
That memo, though.
I know, sir.
Thank you so very much for those powerful remarks, Honorable Ed. At this time, we are going to begin the presentations, but I just want to read some brief lines about the presenters that we have today. Maria L. Imperial was appointed by Governor Kathy Hochul as Commissioner for the New York State Division of Human Rights in October 2021. Prior to her appointment, Ms. Imperial served as the CEO of the YWCA White Plains and Central Westchester, whose mission is eliminating racism and empowering women. Previous to her tenure at the YWCA, Ms. Imperial was Executive Director of the City Bar Justice Center and Assistant Director at the General Council of Safe Horizon. You can stand and as the what we say to welcome Commissioner Imperial. Linda Fenstermaker has served as a Regional Director for the New York State Division of Human Rights since 2016. In that role, she oversees the investigations of discrimination complaints in the 5 counties covered by the Division of White Plains Office. Before that, Ms. Fenstermaker became the Regional Director. She worked as a human rights specialist at that division. Prior to joining the division, Ms. Fenstermaker, who worked as an investigative attorney for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office for almost 20 years, investigating complex criminal matters. Now we're going to welcome Ms. Linda to the podium. In the last 1 month that I have been Commissioner of Human Rights, the State Division of Human Rights, they have spent countless hours taking us through the process. Myself and my colleague, Linda, and my colleague, Eileen Clancy. Eileen, you can stand up for us so that they... Eileen is our great human rights specialist who we've been working with through this process. And now, this is the time or thing we all came for to hear about this presentation. After the presentation, we're going to have an interactive Q&A. I know you're following the program. So at this time, I'll call upon Commissioner Imperial to start talking to the community. You'll come.
Thank you so much, Spencer. This is really incredible. You've been in office for a month, and to see a crowd like this and for him to know every single person in the audience is really, it's an incredible and very inspiring. As Spencer said, I'm Maria Imperial, and I have the honor of serving as the Commissioner of the State Division of Human Rights. And I'm even more honored to be part of the Governor's historic administration, being the first woman governor of the state of New York. The division has been serving our state since 1945. That's when New York became the first state in the country to pass a human rights law and also to dedicate an office to enforcing the law. And something that I didn't know, frankly, before I became the commissioner, and I feel very, very proud of, that we really led the way on human rights in the United States. This week, specifically tomorrow, December 10th, we will be celebrating Human Rights Day. This is the date, as County Exec Day said, that the United States adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This year's human rights theme is dignity, freedom, and justice for all. And the call to action is stand up for human rights. In 1958, on the 10th anniversary of the Declaration of Human Rights, Eleanor Roosevelt asked, "Where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any map of the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere." Rockland County and all the other counties, cities, and towns across New York State are the kind of places that Eleanor Roosevelt was talking about, where human rights begin. The division is charged with ensuring that human rights not only begin, but that they endure. Our mission is eliminating discrimination, remedying injustice, and promoting equal opportunity, access, and dignity. We accomplish our mission by investigating, prosecuting, and adjudicating discrimination cases, educating the public about their rights and responsibilities, proposing policy and legislation, and building community. For the most part, we accomplish our mission through enforcement. Each year, we investigate and resolve over 6,000 complaints of discrimination statewide. We partner with other civil rights agencies to help make the most impact. At the federal level, we partner with the U.S. Equal Opportunity Commission and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to investigate cases of employment and housing discrimination on each of their behalves. We also have a partnership with the Rockland County Commission where they can investigate cases on DHR's behalf. And I also would like to do a shout out to Eileen too, because I understand that she's a great partner with Linda in our office. Okay. Lastly, DHR also has a unit that can look at systemic issues of bias and discrimination and file a complaint when it learns of a discriminatory policy with a great impact. For example, the maternity policies of large employers can touch thousands of workers across the state. We currently have a case against Amazon similar to that. However, apart from these cases, there are deeper and more difficult issues of hate and bias that impact our communities, our schools, our homes, and our lives. We've seen this hate and bias manifest itself in incomprehensible violence, the massacre of Black New Yorkers in Buffalo, mass shootings at LGBTQ clubs, attacks on Sikh houses of worship, the targeting of Asian American and Pacific Islanders, and just a few miles away, and actually we're going to be commemorating this next week, a stabbing attack targeting Jewish New Yorkers. Everyone, no matter what color they are, or who they love, or what they believe, should be able to feel safe when they go to work, or go dancing, or visit a house of worship, or celebrate a holiday at home. Last January, Governor Hochul announced that a priority of her administration would be making New York a fairer, more just state for all its residents. To accomplish this, she directed the division to create a hate and bias prevention unit. The unit will lead efforts around public education, outreach, prevention, and response. It will consist of two main initiatives: regional councils made up of local community stakeholders and a rapid response team of specialized anti-bias professionals. In setting up these councils, DHR decided to follow the existing models and broke the state into regions such as the Hudson Valley and North Country. We also decided that before the councils could be formed, it would be helpful to hear from the community stakeholders in each region to identify the issues being faced and to help identify who should participate on the councils to help address these issues. We were also interested in utilizing restorative justice principles in the community stakeholder meetings and decided to structure the meetings as healing circles to begin the process of addressing the harm caused by hate and bias. We've been traveling across the state to identify the issues faced in different communities and regions. We've learned a lot, but there's so much more that we need to learn, and there are many, many people who remain unheard. I hope that you might consider getting involved with the local regional council and take a stand against hate. And as per a bill signed into law by Governor Hochul last week, the unit will also take a lead on a public awareness campaign to promote inclusion, tolerance, and understanding of diversity. As long as people face discrimination in employment, housing, places of public accommodation, or education, are valued less, or are subjected to hate and bias, the promise of our nation to promote dignity, freedom, and justice for all cannot be realized. With your partnership, I hope we can make a better New York State for all of us and for our future generations. Thank you so much.
I know you may have questions, contribution, but just put a bookmark on that one until we hear from Linda Fenstermaker. Then we are going to open it up for the contributions and a broader conversation. Let's welcome Linda.
Thank you, everyone. I echo the Commissioner's remarks to say that it is an honor to be here at this auspicious gathering at Rockland County. The energy, I think, in this room is for promoting mission of human rights is palpable. It's absolutely contagious. And I suspect that we will probably be hearing a bit later on today. Thank you, County Executive Ed Day and Commissioner Spencer Chiimbwe, for allowing us to be a part of this very special occasion. You heard a lot about the human rights law and the division. What does this law cover? And I am here to tell you a little bit about that. It covers those circumstances where an individual who, because of their specific characteristics, is subjected to discriminatory treatment, and the incident occurred in the following circumstances: in employment, in housing, in non-sectarian educational institutions like public schools and public colleges, in places of public accommodation like restaurants, theaters, hospitals, the doctor's office, your grocery store. So what are those specific characteristics that are protected under the human rights law? In employment, the law covers those instances where a worker is not promoted because of her race or her sex, or because he is older. The law covers those instances where a worker is fired because the worker is in a same-sex relationship, or the worker is outed without the worker's consent. The law covers those instances where a worker is not allowed to take time off for religious observance, or is fired because he wears facial hair in accordance with his religious beliefs, or is harassed because he subscribes to no religion and does not believe in a God. The law covers those instances where a worker is not permitted to speak his native language in the workplace. The law covers also those instances where a worker goes out on maternity leave and finds that she has no job to return to, or she finds herself demoted and is paid less than before she had left. Or where a worker is not allowed to take family leave to care for a newborn because he is the father and not the mother of that child. The law covers those instances where a job applicant gets the job offer only to have it rescinded when the background check came back showing a felony conviction from 10 years ago. The law covers those instances where a worker in the military reserves gets fired because he or she is deployed to active duty or is called to temporary service or training. The law covers those instances where a supervisor refuses to honor the preferred name or pronoun of a worker, or because he does not dress in a manner in line with his assigned sex at birth. The law covers those instances where a worker has to take time off from work to appear in court or to find shelter because of an abusive partner. The law covers those instances where a nanny is subjected to unwanted sexual advances by her boss. In housing, the law also covers those instances where a landlord refuses to rent to you because you rely on a government voucher to cover part of that rent, even though you can meet that rent with that voucher. And in place of public accommodation, The law covers those instances where, because of your service dog, the restaurant refuses to serve you, or where the restaurant seats you at a table in a remote location of that restaurant, even though there are other seating available, or where there is a gym membership that does not allow a member to use the restroom consistent with the member's gender identity. So if, because of these protected characteristics, your race, your national origin, your creed, your sex, your gender identity, your sexual orientation, pregnancy-related condition, domestic violence victim status, marital family status, military status, age, disability, prior conviction record, favorably resolved arrest record. If you are being discriminated against because of these protected characteristics and that conduct occurred in housing, in employment, in place of public accommodation, in non-sectarian educational institutions, there is the human rights law at your service. What can you do if this happens? What are your options? Well, your options are you can get an attorney and file in state court, or you can file with the Division of Human Rights. To file with the Division of Human Rights, you need to file within 1 year of the last date of discrimination, or in sexual harassment cases, you have 3 years instead of the 1. Do you need an attorney? No. Do you need to pay a filing fee? No. Do you need to even step out of your home? Not anymore. From the comforts and privacy of your own home, and if you have access to a computer, all you need to do is this. Go to our website, www.dhr.ny.gov, fill out the online complaint form, sign the form, submit it. It is that simple. You don't have access to a computer? No problem. Give us a call. We can send you a hard copy. The magic of the law is this. It puts the power of getting review of a discriminatory situation directly in the hands of those who experience discrimination. Who can do this? Your grandmother who's hard of hearing, your neighbor in the wheelchair, your adult children, the 18-year-old college student, the retiree, the nanny who speaks very little English, the janitor, the elementary school teacher, the nurse, the cashier at the grocery store, the person who needs to use a service dog. Each and every single one of those individuals can file a complaint of discrimination the same day that they experience it. You don't need someone with a law degree. Just fill out the form, sign it, and send it in. We will look at your evidence, and you will get an answer. Thank you so much.
Those were very timely and powerful presentations. And now, at this time, we are going to take some questions, contributions, concerns, and take it from there. So please say who you are and the organization that you are representing, or the community where you're coming from. Did I see a hand? Okay, yes, Jackie? That's Jackie, right? Okay, yeah.
Is this really on? Oh, it's really on. Okay. My name is Jackie Drexler, and I live in Valley Cottage, New York. And I was curious about the whole Section 8 voucher thing because apparently landlords and homeowners have the right to say no to that. They don't seem to understand that it's given money, that it's actually more secure than if the person is trying to make the rent on their own. And so I'm wondering if there's some sort of educational component that you can bring to realtors maybe about this, that they can bring to landlords a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. You want to check on that, Commissioner? Or Lyndon?
I agree with you. And I had mentioned when I spoke that our role is enforcement of the law. One thing that's part of my vision is to try to prevent is prevention. And so we have started doing a lot and have always done outreach to realtor associations to make them aware of what the law is. And I do think that we need an incredible almost campaign around source of income vouchers because people, you know, the most charitable light, I think that some people are not aware that it is the law, it is their responsibility to accept that voucher. So I think that we have to do a lot more work in terms of raising awareness, and I do think we have to do more work in community outreach to the professional communities. It also happens, like I'll just use another example with the mortgage industry or appraisals. There are very few people of color in the appraisal industry. There's a lot of discrimination there. So we have to do work educating the appraisal industry, for example, to increase housing and ensure fair housing for all. So I don't know if Linda wants to add anything.
I agree with everything that the commissioner has said, and I think it's important to get the question out and the proposals out to our external relations as well, because I think the more that we know what is necessary out there to educate the public, regardless of which side you're on, information is always helpful in getting to the right answers for everyone. So if there are proposals for outreach events that you would like to present and for the division to sponsor and maybe hold, give us a call, call external relations, and certainly, there will be, attempts to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I noticed that hand.
Yes, hi everybody. Priscilla Kurtzman from Creative Response to Conflict. I'm interested in hearing about the different amounts of healing circles that you're doing versus preventative types of restorative justice and restorative practices, and how we can do more of this in the future. Thank you so much.
Well, we're just launching the unit, and actually yesterday we announced it at our Human Rights Day event, the launch of the Hate and Bias Prevention Unit. So we just use that technique of the community circle to host the listening sessions in each region. But the thought is that in each region, people will learn and will be using more. We also partnered with the community dispute resolution centers who are across the state. You might be one of them. Our goal is to be working with them to make this service more available. And some of the things that we heard when we did the listening sessions across the state, people did like that format of doing the community circle, and so they asked for us to do more community circles. But people also said, we want to see action. It's great to talk, and we need to talk and have these courageous conversations, but we need to see action too. So those were two takeaways from the circles.
Thank you so much for that question. We have a hand here in the front. Yes, Eileen. Oh, yeah, just right here in the front. And then we can take one or two more questions, then we talk to each other.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Jack Schloss. I'm a local attorney. I have a couple of what I think are fairly elementary questions. Ms. Fenstermaker, you said you're the regional director of the State Division of Human Rights. How many divisions are there in the state, and what division is this county, Rockland County, in? Is there a name of the region? How do you define the region? That's the first question.
So, the division is a state agency that's essentially has divided the sections of the state into different offices for largely, I believe, convenience purposes. So Rockland County is included as one of the 5 counties that's covered by the White Plains office. So the White Plains office covers Rockland County, Putnam County, Dutchess, Orange, and Westchester counties. But that doesn't mean that you need to file necessarily with the White Plains office in order to get a complaint reviewed. You can just simply submit your complaint online, and there is a centralized office that basically sends out the complaints to be reviewed and investigated by any of the regional offices. They try to keep it to the local region where the situation occurred, but it can be investigated in any of the multiple regions in the division. So there are, I don't remember how many, but there is the Upper Manhattan office, the Brooklyn office, there is the Albany office, the Rochester and Syracuse office. If you take a look at our website, it'll list out where all the regional offices are located so that people can walk into the offices if they need to have questions answered or pick up a hard copy of the complaint form, or just to speak to someone because they have questions. The housing investigations all consolidated into one office, and that is the Housing Investigation Office. The sexual harassment, discrimination complaints are also centralized into one unit by our OSHI office. So if you go into our website, it will list out the different regional offices and the specialized offices that the division has.
Did you say you have one more question?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
You said that anyone can fill out a complaint online. What does your office do when you receive a complaint? How do you investigate?
So once a complaint has been filed, the form that's filled out online has been completed. The form gets sent out to the regional office who's been assigned to investigate that claim. We take that form and it gets assigned, it gets reviewed first to make sure that we have jurisdiction to cover the claim that's being alleged. Once that has been reviewed and approved, the case gets assigned to an investigator who will then take a look at the complaint, speak with the complainant, and find out a little bit more. In the meantime, a copy of that complaint form gets sent out to the entity that has been accused of the discrimination alleged. We request for them to review the complaint and basically to give us their side of the story and to submit a response. Once we get that response, we send a copy of that response to the complainant again, because we want the complainant to take a look at the response and to give us some insight on whether or not they disagree with or agree with what the response says. We collect evidence based on what we've uncovered through interviews, through the written submissions that have been sent to us. And after a review of the evidence that has been collected, we will make a decision on whether or not that is a case that merits a hearing with a probable cause finding. If a hearing is determined to be an appropriate venue for resolving the claim, there is then a hearing that is held before the administrative law judge, who will issue a fact finding and make a recommendation to the commissioner, who will then decide whether or not there was discrimination or no discrimination. Does that answer your question?
How long does all that take?
Well, generally it takes about 180 days, sometimes sooner. It really depends on the complexity of the claim and the number of bases. If someone is claiming, race, sex, and disability, it's going to take a little bit longer and a lot more evidence to decide on whether or not there was discrimination on each of those bases. If it's just a one claim or it's a retaliation claim, it could be quicker. And of course, it also depends on whether or not the pandemic is going on that causes a shutdown in the office. So all of those also come into play in terms of how quick an investigation can be completed. But generally, it's done within a year.
Yes, Dr. Pratt.
Can you give us an idea of your success rate in answering people's problems?
What is the success rate in answering people's problems?
I'm not sure if I'm going to be answering your question, but one thing that is important to know, or that just happens, is that over 80% of all of the cases settle somewhere along the process. So the settlement, for the most part, is a success in bringing the parties together. And then, very few cases, 20%, I'm just estimating, but it is around those numbers. 20% go through the final hearings. Now, I don't know if you're asking what percentage of all of the cases there's a finding of discrimination. Only about 20% make it to the final order, and I don't know, but we could find out what percentage of those there's a finding of discrimination. Okay, you know them? In terms of probable cause, because it's a two-stage process, so the first stage is the investigation stage, and then the second stage is the hearing stage. So in terms of probable cause, more than 25% of all of the claims, not sexual harassment, there's a finding of probable cause. And then for sexual harassment, because the law changed in 2019 with the standard changing, now almost 50% of the cases, there's a finding of probable cause.
Yes, Dr. Marie Cadet. Oh, yes, so hold the thought. Yes, go ahead, sir.
One question, Reverend Carl Washington, pastor of the Pilgrim Baptist Church of Nyack. I noticed that religion was not included in the things investigated, so I just wanted to know, is there a reason why religion isn't included under human rights?
So let's handle two questions. Let's also have, you have a question so that we run over. Matthew, I saw the hand, but let's have two questions. Dr. Marie, can you also come up with a question?
I think I can speak loud enough. Good morning, everyone. Maria Elena. My question is, New York State is employment at will, and I looked at all the list of things that are covered when it comes to filing the complaint of discrimination. What kind of proof does an employee need in order for them to really bring a case forward? Because New York is employment at will, the employer can dismiss anyone for any given reason, even if it fits within one of these categories.
So one question on religion, one question on the kind of proof. Let's take that on, Commissioner.
So in order to substantiate a claim of discrimination, you have to prove that the firing or the suspension, whatever the adverse employment action is that occurred, is because of that protected characteristic that you're alleging. So let's say, for example, if one believes that she was not promoted because she is 70 years old, the proof that the complainant would have to show is, can you articulate why it is you believe that it is because of your age? So how do you prove whether something is because of age? You look at things like, was something said? Was there a remark said about your age? Was there some sort of pattern that you observed with the coworkers? Are you seeing that a lot of coworkers around your age are suddenly being removed from employment? Those are the things that you want to take a look at and think about why it is that you believe that it is because of age. Usually if someone believes that it's because of a feeling about age, it's because they've internalized something that they may be seeing to articulate that. And with our help, we can try to get some of those, some of the information that you might not have access to. So for example, if you see a couple of people who are being terminated, and you believe it's all because of age, because they all work well and they've been satisfied, adequately performing their duties, we can request records to show, okay, let's take a look at how many people have been fired in the last couple of years, and let's take a look at their age group. So that's what we're here for. We want to hear why it is that you believe that it is because of your age, and we will talk to you about how we can get evidence to substantiate that, that thought. And with regard to your question on religion, it is covered under the human rights law, under pre-discrimination. So anyone who has been subjected to discrimination because they wear their facial hair, because their religion requires them to do, that's something that we do cover. If they're not able to take certain days off to celebrate a religious holiday, that is also something that we will take a look at, and it is covered under the human rights law. So it's pre-discrimination.
Hi, Linda. Go ahead.
My question is twofold about the proposed constitutional amendment, which is actually going to codify the human rights law into the Constitution. So, number one, will this give the Commission more clout? And number two, how do we convince the public that this is a good thing to vote for next November?
Let's also get another question from Matthew. Did I say hand? Or it was on behalf of Linda. Thank you so much. You want to take on the constitutional amendment question?
I just have to ask you for some clarity. Are you referring to the Equal Rights Amendment in the New York State Constitution? Yes. Yes, okay. So it's a good question, and I never really thought about it before. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure if it would increase our jurisdiction, but I think that if there is an Equal Rights Amendment, and this is just my personal opinion, not the official position, we don't have an official position on this, but if it was in the Constitution, then it would be much harder to take away rights. And so I would say that it would be a step forward in protecting the rights of women to have an Equal Rights Amendment in the Constitution. It'd be harder to take away rights then.
Okay, yes, is that Awi?
Yeah.
Awi.
Hi, good morning.
I'm curious to know what the 80% is.
through the process that Linda explained. You know, I explained there were two, there's the probable cause investigation and then there's a hearing. There are opportunities for settlement along the process. So the 80% of the cases ultimately settle during the process. I don't know if you're asking, so there could be damages awarded for lost wages. It could be somebody might want a policy change. So those conditions are in the settlements. And one thing that the division did last year was that we changed our rule, if you will, and it's on the website now, that there can no longer be any more private settlements. So meaning that if you get to the hearing stage and have a settlement before it goes to a final order, that has to be approved by the Division of Human Rights as well. And all of our orders are on our website, and the goal is to put all of the settlements on the website as well for increased transparency. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question specifically, but the settlement would contain the issues that the complainant was interested in pursuing.
Barbara?
Hi, how are you? I'm Mary Rodriguez, and I work for Bridges Agency, and we work with people that have disabilities. And I don't know if this is a statement more or less rather than a question, but you know, our jobs are including to find housing for people that have disabilities, and it is extremely difficult, number one, to prove when a landlord or apartment complex is discriminating based on the fact that they have a disability, because there's a host of ways that they can eliminate somebody's housing in other ways. But at the end of the day, we also service people who are being reintegrated from jail or also having similar problems. So the fact that it does take a while to file the complaint and get it through the system and get a settlement or not, oftentimes we find that the people with disabilities are being reintegrated from jail are having a difficult time finding interim housing. And I know we don't have a shelter here in the county, specific, temporary, or otherwise, other than the warming center. I don't think this is specific to Hudson Valley. I think it's a statewide problem. So along the auspices of human rights, I was just throwing this out there to the commission or the people that are going to volunteer to be on the Hudson Valley Commission, in that housing for disabilities and reintegrated people coming out of jail is a huge problem and should be thought about in a very serious way. And especially with the now, I guess, the proposal for New York City for involuntary committing someone to a mental health hospital involuntarily without medical participation in that decision, to me is a large human rights violation, because that's just a way of taking care of the homelessness on the street, because most people are. And so you're using committing to a hospital as the answer instead of finding ways to temporarily help people find housing, because it is a process. And even the mental health housing here in the county has waiting lists to get in many times. So that is a giant human rights issue in terms of what we're dealing with on the end of integration and disability services.
Thank you so much, Mary Rodriguez, and the great work that you are doing. We had this conversation with you before, and I can just notice the consistency and the passion with which you come out when it comes to dealing with people with disability. Now, I know.
I'm sorry. I have a question.
Okay.
Reverend Dr. Brandon McLaughlin, pastor of St. Charles Anglican Church in Sparkhill. There are a lot of human rights kind of crisis going on in Rockland County. And my question is the Human Rights Commission for Rockland County receiving cases, and have you inherited some cases from when you've come in? And also, what things have been done to let the community know that they can file claims and things of that nature? I know we're hearing it, but for a broader audience, what are the things that are being done for the people who may not be able to take off work and be here today?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. Yes, we get questions from the community. We have not started filing cases online, like the State Department, but we get cases from the community, and I'm glad some of our board members are here, and we try to see and plan how we can strengthen our relationship with the community, be more feasible in the community, and continue with our message to say that, hey, we are here and we are dealing with housing discrimination issues, employment discrimination issues, and that's what we're doing. Have we inherited cases? Oh yes, we have that process, and we are trying to take cases head on, and we are collaborating closely with the New York State Division of Human Rights. Thank you so very much for that question.
Hello.
Yes, exactly. Is the baby going to ask as well? Or?
It seems as if the pastors have the mic today. My name is Pastor Greg Merriweather, wearing a few hats, pastor of Calvary Baptist Church in Haverstraw, religious affairs chair for the NAACP Nyack branch, and the state chaplain for New York Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. As Dr. McLaughlin and even Pastor Washington just mentioned, many people turn to their households of faith as safe spaces as first contact in communicating these human rights violations, and oftentimes become frustrated with what appears to be either a perceived lack of response or lack of visibility and tracking. So my question is, number one, do you, Commissioner, have any plans of building relationships and bridges with the households of faith throughout the county so that we can continue to bridge these concerns with you and communicate back to our constituents and our members, our congregation and community? And number two, he's frustrated by the question. Number two, what tracking visibility do people who place complaints have so that they have a good understanding that their complaints are being followed up upon in a timely fashion? So those two questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pastor. When I started with the opening remarks, I reiterated what the county executive wants to see happen, and that is collective ownership of human rights in the county. Meaning we go more to the community and have every community member have a stake in that community. We are making a lot of efforts to bring the human rights to you, to have our process informed by you, by the community. This is community-centric, and the answer is yes, we are having plans, and we have got a program that projects all the way beyond 2023 to see how we can work with the community every single day in the issues that we set the community. In terms of tracking, I think the commissioners can speak to that. Yes, we have a program called CMS where we track cases, and we can get back to that, and we can talk more about that. So there is a way, because the community has given us this mandate to oversee the cases and follow through and come up with solution. Yes, we have a tracking system where we track these cases and see if those cases are within our purview to do, and if they are not within our purview or jurisdiction, then we see where we can refer them. That's a very good question, and a reminder that we need to work together as a team.
Is that visibility for the tracking that you so well put? Is that visibility available to the complainant? The visibility of the tracking of that case, so that they won't sit with the frustration or the illusion, right, that their
Okay, so the question is whether the community is privy to CMS. Can you speak to that, Commission?
I would say no, unfortunately, at this stage. People can call or can email and ask about the status of their claim. I would like to see a system where, and I don't know if this is possible in our CMS, where there's regular, for each case, just a notice that goes out so that people know that we didn't forget about their case. We didn't forget about their case, but I know it's just human nature that if you don't hear or get anything, you would think that you're not aware of the person's case. So it would be helpful to automate the process so that every X number of days, as your case is progressing, that you receive some kind of notification. But we don't have that system in place right now. That was your question.
Yeah, I mean, I think just from an efficiency place, you could make a grocery order and they'll tell you your whoever is picking cheese, and if you don't have this cheese, they have that cheese. From a perception perspective, I think that many people have kind of come and turned to their local churches, not only just as a first, but as an additional recourse, because that perception that they've submitted and no one cares about their case. So I think that's an area we could, would love to help improve that communication back to the actual complainant so that they have a good up-to-date status of what's going on with their case.
Great, thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Nicole Priest. I am the County Reentry Coordinator, also working at Bridges. In terms of employment, people with conviction histories, justice involvement are also protected by Article 23A corrections law, but that seems to be not being used in the way that it should. There's still clear discrimination, and employers are getting away with it by saying they're not qualified and certain things like that. I'm just wondering if, as advocates and community members, there's anything that we can do going forward to help hold the employers accountable to answering the question that Article 23A poses.
I'm sorry.
Could you repeat the first part of what you said regarding, I guess, job applicants?
Yes, so individuals returning home from incarceration are covered by Article 23A corrections law, and employers it basically states that, in a nutshell, employers have to answer how the conviction is related to their ability to do the job, and employers are utilizing that in a way of just saying they're not qualified, but it's clear somebody with the same qualifications and no history applies to the same job and they don't get it. So I'm wondering if, as advocates, what other channels can we use to ensure that employers are held accountable?
Well, given what information you just told me that this person knows, that's a person who should file a complaint. Because if the person with a conviction record is qualified and knows that another person has also filed, maybe less qualified, for the job, and that person got the job, that's information that we can, once the complaint has filed, we can get from the employer to see what the reason was for why the less qualified person has been hired instead of the other person. And we can take a look at the record to see whether or not, do they hire persons with conviction records? Do they have people with conviction records on their staff? All those are taken into account. There are instances where a complainant is not going to have access to information. We kind of don't expect that they would have access to information. But once the complaint has been filed, we can get the information that they otherwise would not have access to, and we can take a look at that information and see whether or not there is a problem with that particular claim. Okay. Now, I think there was just to supplement on the answer with regard to, staying updated on cases that are pending before the division. There's usually an investigator assigned to a case by that point, and the investigator, him or herself, is the point of contact for what is going on with their case. Sometimes you're not hearing anything because we're either waiting for evidence to come in that we've requested, or we're waiting for a response, or we're waiting for a rebuttal, or we're waiting for interviews to be done. And from our perspective, things are going on, but I can understand that from your perspective, you're not hearing anything and possibly thinking that there's nothing going on. But generally, there is something going on, and if you give us a call or give the investigator a call, you'll find out. Also, just remember, on any given day, an investigator has 40 to 50 cases to investigate. So that investigator has to kind of juggle, what's going on in all of those cases at the same time. Generally, all the cases are staggered and are at different stages of the investigation, so they can make that work. But if you're feeling that you're not hearing enough from the investigator, email the investigator, give the investigator a call, and they should be getting back to you within 24 hours, unless they're on vacation, obviously a little bit later. But anyone in the office can give you some information about what's going on with that case.
My name is James Fraser. I'm with the Helping Hands for the Homeless of Rockland County. And I wonder if, in as much as we're talking about human rights and the Human Rights Commission, can you assure us that the protections provided by that Act extend to those undocumented among us?
Well, maybe Linda should answer this one. New York State does cover the undocumented. It's covered under nationality or immigration status as well. I don't know if Linda wants to add anything.
We take complaints from anyone, regardless of your status in the United States. So we don't ask. If you want to tell us, that's your business, but we don't make it a business to ask. It really doesn't matter.
I'm Senior Legislative Counsel for the Rockland County Legislature and also on the Rockland Community College Board of Trustees. And my question is related to, you stated that about 80% of the cases settle prior to a hearing or to a finding. And I'd like to know a little bit more about how that's accomplished. Do you actively seek to facilitate reconciliation in your office? If so, does that mean, do you have staff separate from the investigators who do that? Or do you employ outside mediators? And how do you get to that 80%?
Okay, so the first part is the investigation stage. So I'm going to look to Linda right now during the investigation stage because you're overseeing that. During the investigation stage, does the investigator do anything to foster the settlement? That's the question.
Or who does?
And then
how do
answer.
you get to that?
So it can come in a number of ways. On the complaint form itself, there is a question about whether or not the parties are or the complainant is interested in settling and what those terms might be. And we do ask the respondents whether or not they're interested in settling. It's really up to the parties on whether or not they want to proceed with that. That is a question that is brought up early on in the investigation and is again brought up right before I guess a decision has been issued. But at any point in time, if we get the sense that a party is open to conciliation because of something they've said, we will certainly bring that to the attention. We would basically we would discuss it more with the person who's bringing it up, and then we would raise that point with the opposing party.
Would that be the investigator, or is there separate staff that somehow, do they actually put them at a table and have a mediation session?
No, that is up to the party. So the investigator can initiate the conversation about conciliation and take it from there. If attorneys are involved on both sides, they tend to work together in coming to some term if they're interested. So if the complainant's attorney is interested in a settlement, and sometimes they come to the division with that in mind, they can approach the respondent's attorney and say, hey, look, to withdraw this complaint, we're interested in having this done. And that's always a possibility that can involve the investigator. But where the parties have decided that they are going to engage in terms where it would result in a private settlement agreement, the investigation is not a party to that. So the parties themselves can work out their own private settlement agreement without the investigator's involvement. If the investigator's involved, it is because a predetermination conciliation is going to be used. And that is an agreement process, a settlement process that involves the division also being a participant in that settlement agreement. And under those circumstances, the division would have to approve those terms of settlement before that can be accomplished. So in a private settlement agreement, sometimes parties would prefer to have terms that the division would not be a party to and execute their own agreement.
We don't have separate staff.
Hi.
I think part of your question was also if we have separate staff doing this function. We don't have a separate mediation unit or conciliation staff, so it would be investigators or we also assign a prosecutor to the case once it's at the hearing stage. So it would be the prosecution unit that would be at the pre-hearing conference, and then also at a settlement conference right before the hearing takes place. So there's 2 times during the hearing process where there's a formal attempt to try to bring about settlement.
Hi, Isaac Brennebaum. I run Concord Mediation Group. We help couples that are going through divorce go through in the most peaceful process possible. I want to echo what the pastors asked and really know what is there that could be done not through legislation, but really on the community level and working together possibly with the other, with the government to be able to address things privately through a religious group.
Before either Linda or the commissioner comes up to answer that question, we are going to take 2 more questions. After that, yes, Natalie, how are you? I'll come back to you. We're going to take 2 more questions. Then after that, we can the people from the state are still with us. We can start reaching out to each other at that level. So after the answer to that question has been given, we're going to take 2 more questions. Then we can start conversing amongst ourselves with the resources we have this morning from the state. Yes. Do you have a question from Avi?
I did hear the question, but I'm not sure if I understand it completely. But what we're doing in terms of the hate and bias prevention unit is we're creating these regional councils, and they're not going to be like cookie cutter. So each region will, I think, focus on different areas. So I'm just using this as an example. So in the Hudson Valley, there's a feeling like we want more opportunities for people that have conflict to be able to solve that problem themselves. I mentioned we're working with the CDRCs. Perhaps we could work with your organization. So if that's an issue in the Hudson Valley region, something could be set up to foster that, if that's what the question is.
Hi, my name is Pascal Jean Giles. I'm on the village board of NYAC. I had a question in regards to some of the, I'm over here, sorry. Question in regards to some of the cases that you see. Do you often, at least in terms of housing or even hate cases, see repeat offenders, some of the same landlords or building managements come up? And if you do and you continue to see these settlements being pushed for, do you push for an additional remedy, like any type of training that the landlords or something needs to go through, any sort of community outreach to make sure that the community is aware of their rights in regards to housing, anything like that?
So So we are going to answer two questions. We're going to have the second question from Natalie. Then, okay, two more. Then we wrap it up from there. Yes, Natalie.
Good morning. My name is Natalie Patterson, and my question is about: do you respond only to individuals that come forward with a problem, or if there is something that is more a broader maybe disparity in services between different kinds of communities? For example, sorry. They now have the Climate and Community Act in New York State, which is going to provide resources for climate change. And I wonder if lower income communities and higher income communities will have an equal distribution of services that they need. We all know that lower income communities might have less public services. It could be sanitation, it could be parks, it could be trees on the street, and higher income communities have better services. And is there a way that the Commission on Human Rights can look at patterns and practices of the distribution of resources so that the lower income communities do get their fair share, particularly now when we talk about climate issues, because it is critical to address these problems right now, not 10 years ago actually, to make a difference. Is that clear? Because I see you all kind of with a quizzical look on your faces.
Trying to figure out who was going to answer each question if we had that look on our face. So one of the things that I mentioned is, I would say the majority of the complaints we get are individual complaints. But one thing that I think is a wonderful power that we have is that we have what's called Division Initiated Action Unit. So the Division of Human Rights could bring a claim where it sees systemic issues. One caveat would be that ultimately we have to have jurisdiction over the claim, so I don't know if the type of claim, which would be disparity in resources under this climate change law, whether or not we necessarily would have jurisdiction, but people can call with issues that we could look at, the Division Initiated Action Unit, and then we would make a determination if we had the resources to take it on, if we had the jurisdiction, and then we can bring the complaint on behalf of the State of New York Division for Human Rights.
The only issue with that is that if it's not done in the planning stages, you can't wait until the money is dispersed and communities are already getting the, I don't know, solar panels, wind turbines, whatever it is, to reduce the environmental footprint overall of the state. And particularly, here we're talking about Rockland County. It's clear that, and we all know this, it's common knowledge, that higher income communities have more access to those decision-making processes and policy setting and all. Lower income communities, people have higher priority struggles than whether or not they're going to get wind turbine or, subsidized solar panels on their rooftops or things of that nature. So that's why I'm saying, is there a way that you can look at how things are in the development stages on a more like a class action basis?
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure we would be the correct agency to do that, but I know that communities across the state are looking at equity issues and disparities, and want to include in the planning process a mechanism to ensure that there's equal access. But that's more at the legislative when the bill is being passed. But you raised a good issue, so I'm going to look into it, and I do think that we have to be creative. So thank you for raising that issue. And then Your issue about if we see a pattern, and I think it's very related to that question. So if we were to see a pattern with a specific landlord, then we can also bring, as a systemic issue, we could bring the complaint. But I have to say, we see both. We see, I forget what the word is, but there are also complainants that are always filing complaints, as well as, common respondents as well. And yes, we do include as part of settlements that policies might have to change as well.
Hi, I guess it's still good morning, everybody. I am Itamar Yeager, I'm a county legislator in the county. We've been hearing a lot of issues that have been raised today, and housing seems to be a big one. And there's talk about, responses to individual cases of discrimination based upon disability or race or religion. But the problem with housing in the state of New York and in the United States is systemic. It is not an individual problem. It is a collective group problem. New York State is what's called a home rule state, where various lesser municipalities are tasked with deciding a broad range of issues. Ironically, I think when it comes to housing, it should be called a non-home rule state, because the way it's set up is that villages and towns and cities are tasked with creating zoning rules that are deliberately and purposefully and appropriately called exclusionary zoning. And I think that is something that the state needs to handle. The system that we have in place does not allow low-income housing. If we had more low-income housing, we wouldn't have a lot of the issues that we have with regard to housing, because if people could build housing for disabled people and build workforce housing for single people and build true low-income housing, which translates into denser housing, then we would be able to service the people that are not currently being serviced by the absence of housing in the whole country. I read an article that said there's a minimum deficit in the United States of 2 million housing units. And when everybody's proud in their neighborhood, when we take a landlord and we take the landlord to task for allowing 5 families to live in a high ranch somewhere in Rockland County. And there are various places that happens. It doesn't only happen where we are now. In Navajo, it happens all over this county. The reason that 5 families are living in a high ranch is because they can't find housing for themselves at an affordable price. It costs tens of thousands of dollars per unit to go through the planning process, because that's what's been created in order to prevent low-income housing. The county just purchased 11 acres. I just voted to purchase 11 acres for open space. It cost us $370,000 an acre. $370,000 just for land. How many low-income units can you put on a 370,000 acre lot if you can only build 1 unit on it? You can't. You can't even build for middle income. You can't even build for wealthy at $370,000 an acre. And the problem is that at the lower level, at the village and the town levels, democracy is supposed to be as close to the people as possible. But at the same time, we need a broader picture. And I know that the state, I know in California and in New York, there's something going, there's a process that's trying to be done to prevent single homes on large lots being the only units that can be built in a municipality. And that's what we need. We need your help. We need the state's help to really be able to bring affordable housing from the top down, because in my estimation, having lived in this county for 20 years, it will never happen from the ground up. race, their level of disability, and frankly, their income. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that contribution, legislator. It is voices like you, or the voices that we've been given. Voices like you refine our process. They make this kind of work easier. Now, just as a way of giving a solution-driven synopsis or brief to your contribution, I just want to call upon the Director of Community Development just to tell us something about the housing needs assessment that is ongoing. If you can come up here, Alex, add to what the legislator was saying and what the solution-driven approach looks like. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to address all of you. To piggyback off of what Legislator Yeager said, the Office of Community Development has commissioned a comprehensive, affordable, and community housing needs assessment, and we are really looking for your input, meaning constituent groups, religious groups, whoever, on what this county needs in terms of housing, so that we can use this as a planning document for the next 5 to 10 years in terms of developing housing, spending our federal funding in developing housing. So if anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer them after this meeting, or you can contact me at the Office of Community Development. You can see it on our website. But we really welcome as much feedback as possible so that this document is able to be used in a really effective way. So thank you.
This community human rights breakfast was not going to be possible without the leadership of the Rockland County government. We have our deputy county executive, Mike Hobley, Manners, is right there, he lifted up his hand, and we have the legislators in our midst. This wasn't going to be possible without them, and we have directors from different departments, but most importantly, we have you, your voices. CP, the leadership of the NYSDHR is here. Leadership from Proyecto Faro, the Center for the Study of the Bible and Social Justice. We have got the Anti-Defamation League, the Jewish Federation, name them, the Interfaith Coalition, the Immigration Coalition, the Center for Conflict Resolution. Priscilla, good to see you. And I can name them on and on. But we are discussants to this process. It is voices like you. It's your presence that is going to refine this process, and we are going to come up with solutions. We may not answer them all, but we are going to leave something for the next generation. It is your voice, it's our voices that is going to make this work so much easier. But before we start networking with each other, I know the commissioner from the State Division of Human Rights would like to give some closing remarks.
Thank you. And I want to echo what Spencer said, that I've been spending, I guess, the past 3 months or even longer going all around the state and meeting with groups, and you inspire me. I haven't seen across the state such a diverse group as this. There's so many people. So I really am so honored to be here and so grateful for you to make the time to find out more about human rights. And I also want to echo what the county executive said, that I think he said, to the people of Rockland County, I say join us. And when I was at the YWCA as the CEO, I used to always end every presentation with this saying, and it's very appropriate here. So strong alone, fearless together. Thank you so much for coming out, and together we could build a better Rockland County and also a better New York State and a better world. So thank you very much.